Yeah. Somebody's having that's good. It Randy? Yeah.
use up to the village after I mean, I knew it. I knew that.
How are you today? $5 they go on the windows.
I am. I'm going here first and then there.
Oh, they're out on.
Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if you will, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for all those that are here, and we ask that you be with those who can't be here tonight. We pray that we do the city justice by discussing things that you want discussed to happen in this community, and we ask that we come to a conclusion that will satisfy everyone. All these things we pray.
I'd like to welcome all our guests and visitors here tonight. We have a special proclamation to begin with that we would like to present. Mr. Goodman and myself would like to call on Collins Dixon's family. They're here.
I'd like to say one other thing. This family they had a road race recently that honored their son who passed away on 14th of January, and I was asked to come participate in that, as many of you may have been, but what a wonderful testimony to their son in our community. They had over 1,000 people attend that, and for a first-year race, that's phenomenal. But we certainly want to thank you for all for coming.
Jack, I'm going to let Councilman Goodman lead the proclamation. Okay. I can't leave home without that.
Mr. Mayor, if we can get everybody moved over, they can get everybody on camera over here.
Okay, good. Got one in the center there. Born on July 22nd, 1999, Collins Dixon was the youngest in the Dixon family. Collins had a firm faith in God and strived to live with His Word, even as he battled stage 4 glioblastoma multiforme, an aggressive malignant brain tumor. And whereas Collins was an amazing young man that touched many people directly and indirectly through his unwavering strength and commitment to his faith. And whereas, despite his own trials, Collins was an inspiration to others, demonstrated by his desire to give back to his community. And whereas Collins Dixon was part of the solution to change this society. Though he lost his battle to cancer January 14, 2012, and died at the age of 12, he left behind a legacy. He showed people how to live each day to the fullest and to put their faith in God, because he believed your plans might not work out, but His will. Now therefore be it resolved, the mayor and council of the city of Canton do hereby proclaim July 22nd as Collins Dixon Day in the city of Canton, in honor and memory of this remarkable and courageous young man.
Photo op.
Photo op, sorry.
Okay, we have another item in this segment of our meeting. Factory Nation has a request for a permit fee reduction. And I'm going to ask Misty Martin, our Economic Development Director for Cherokee County, to come forward and give us an explanation. Lay that request up here.
Good evening. Thank you for giving us a little time on the agenda tonight. Hopefully you all received a packet regarding Factory Nation and describing the efforts we have here to keep them in the city of Canton and hopefully to build a new 50 to 60,000 square foot facility in the community. Factory Nation began in 2005, which is 7,500 square feet in the airport park, and then moved up into the Bluffs to be one of our first businesses located there in the city limits of Canton inside the Bluffs into 156 Bluffs Court. So they've since grown into 35,000 square feet, and they're adding 10 to 12 jobs in 2012, and if we can get this expansion into the Canton area, they'll expand another 30 jobs next year. So with the new opportunity zone that just passed earlier in the spring, this is a huge success story for us if we can make it happen. In doing some comparisons with Forsyth County, which is one of the other areas in which they've looked, we seem to be a little off with our permit fees, and in order to secure the location here in Canton, we're hoping that you all will consider a reduction in some of the building permit fees. This would be a totally new building built on the pad site right next door to where they are now. And Russ Sanders, who is president of Factory Nation, is here and has brought some information on the company with him that he can pass out to you all. And also Nick Nichols with Bluffs Associates. They own the current facility that Factory Nation leases and would also build and lease this new facility back to them. We were able to come up with a few numbers. Aside from the job creation numbers, the building value is just under $3 million. In new construction, and about $1 million in new personal property with new equipment for the facility. So, wanted to give you some of those numbers to take into consideration as you look into those permit fees. And Russ, is there anything that you'd like to say about the company?
Well, we're just excited to be in Cherokee County. We actually started the company in my basement about 9 years ago. Growing about 30% a year. Most people in the area really don't know who we are. Most of our business is actually outside the state of Georgia. But just look forward to continue growing.
Thank you. We really appreciate you being here in the city as well. I think we may ask Mr. Patton if he has done an analysis on this request, so we can find out what we can and cannot do. We certainly want to work with our businesses here in the city.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I think all the council members are aware, the City of Canton, besides the permit fees that are set for building permits, site construction drawings, things of that nature, the City of Canton does have adopted impact fees. Impact fees by law, if you waive or reduce those impact fees, the City of Canton must repay the impact fee fund from another revenue source. The only revenue source is general fund. So if you all are inclined to approve this fee waiver reduction on behalf of these folks for that new building up there, we would look at the $20,000 reduction come from building permit fees, land construction fees, probably. Some of it would have to come from water as well as sewer tap permit fees also.
Do you have an amount of what the water and sewer tap fees would be at this point?
Not a total amount, no, sir. Okay, the water meter tap fee is $2,100. The sewer tap fee for warehousing would be $26,320. For that portion of the building that is office would be $5,575. The impact fees, which is police, fire, parks, well, not parks, but police, fire, roads, comes to a total of $28,519. The building permit fees are approximately $10,000. That is an approximation. That does not include the mechanical, electrical, or permitting fees, because until we have more information about dollar valuations, the exact type of work that's going to be done with the trades, some of those types of things, we can't get a complete, accurate representation for the total amount of the building permit fees, and this does not include the construction plans, land disturbance permit fees, that sort of thing.
Well, now there's well more than $20,000 in the water and sewer tap fees.
Yes, sir.
And that is not part of the impact fees, right?
Correct, that is not the impact
So we
fee.
could, I mean, I just throw it out there, we could grant that 20,000 credit to that, and it wouldn't affect our repayment of the impact fees.
That is correct, even though the sheet that was supplied to the city council with this fee waiver request does note it as a sewer impact fee. It is not an impact fee. The city of Canton does not have a water or sewer impact fee. That is water and sewer tap fees.
Okay. Gentlemen, what's your thoughts on this? You got to keep in mind a $3 million building's going to be hanging out there, and it's not going to take too many years to recoup that loss.
I need a clarification again on all the numbers. I got 28,000 on the impact fees. What else? There was 10,000.
Approximately 10,000 for the building permit, and there again, that was just an approximation based upon square footage. We didn't have a building valuation to factor into that. The other fees, the water tap fee was $2,100. The sewer was, for the warehouse portion, $26,320. For the office portion, $55.75. Like I said, the impact fees, the distribution portion was $24,769. For the office portion, $37.50. But there again, impact fees is the one that generally the city council has not waived or reduced those fees. Building permit, like I said, was estimated $10,000. There was not a calculation done in regards to land disturbance, building plan review fees, those sorts of things.
So if I'm following you, water and sewer also adds up around 10,000.
It actually adds up about well over $20,000.
That's why I'm trying to clarify. Over 20.
It was 26 something for sewer, right?
Actually, $31,895 for sewer and $2,100 for water.
Yes.
I just opened up this file and I have in front of me, and I'm not in a position to be comfortable sober. I would love to be able to support the program. Hopefully it doesn't delay your groundbreaking or anything else for the time being, but I'm not comfortable with what we want to do here. That's just me.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I got two questions for either Ms. Marta or Mrs. Sanderson. First of all, we're comparing a city to a county, and we know city provides improved services. That's one of the reasons for a city. And the second is the opportunity zone and how that has been calculated, and that there's not a line item here for opportunity zone to where I don't know if Forsyth County is an opportunity zone or not, but there's surely some benefits coming by locating in the bluffs.
The opportunity zone credit, job tax credits would be off of their state income tax or payroll withholding. So that is an added benefit, and I'm not sure if the site that was looked at in Forsyth is in an opportunity zone or not.
But would that, by the math I've seen, it would be, but did that not be included in some type of spreadsheet as to what the net is what the opportunity zone offers, as well as if you're in a county, your fire insurance is probably going to be considerably higher. I don't know that. I just wondered if that is something that y'all have thought about or included in your calculations.
Not in comparison to just the building fees, no. Nick's got a lot of experience building in Forsyth, so he can probably speak to some of that.
The opportunity zone was not figured into this because that's related to the jobs they bring in and the taxes that come off of their taxes that the nation pays. In no relation to the building. This is all strictly with the building, and I guess down the line there is something to that, but as factored as a tenant would not affect the building. As far as their tax savings would not help the building out.
But you're going to pass through these costs to Mr. Sanderson.
Well, they'll pay rent, yes, but they won't pay the.
That's what
but we won't pass. We won't see a pass through on the.
So that doesn't go figuring in your rent.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, I think that, the question here is that all total, the permit fees, impact fees, and everything would be what, Ken, roughly total?
$79,000.
$79,000. 72.
We'll figure out.
Okay, 72,000, and they're asking us to basically waive 20 to help them build this new $3 million building, which will bring in probably about $8,200 a year in property tax. Oh, maybe even more, I don't know, but and hopefully in the next, I don't know, year or two, they'd be adding 30 employees here in the city. I happen to feel like that's a pretty good deal, and so it's up to the council.
One more thing?
Yes, sir. Sure.
They're currently in 25,000 feet of our other building next door, and if they move over, that will give us a chance to backfill that 25,000 feet to hopefully bring in jobs that were not already in the county.
Right. Oh, good. Anyone else? Mr. Rush?
Well, my feeling is that if for giving an impact fee, we have to come up with the money somewhere else. But for giving a sewer tap fee, we don't. And 20,000 doesn't seem like an awful lot in this case. So I'm willing to go with it.
Well, yeah, when you consider what you're getting down the road, for sure. Anyone else? Mr. Jefferson?
Are you looking for a motion?
That would be nice.
Yeah, first time we've heard this.
Well, considering it being an emergency, some of these emergencies we declare.
Okay.
I think you could do that, but, I tell you what, we don't even have to vote. We'll just give them how about a head nod, and then we'll come back at the next meeting and reaffirm whatever.
I'm fine with the motion to vote.
something that we had talked about earlier, in speaking with Ken, you know, there's not one particular area that they're asking for the 20,000 reduction. So
Right.
if you all felt more comfortable with saying, you know, to let staff and council, mayor, you know, figure out where exactly that reduction is going to be, or if it may be a percentage of all the fees except for the regular impact fee, then that's.
Right, they're just, basically it's in the 20,000, right? And I think that we could do that with, allow that water and sewer, then we have to worry about paying that back. Mr. Cummings?
Being this is a voting session, and I don't think a work session would add any additional information to it, I'm also in favor of taking a vote on it.
You want to do your motion then?
I make a motion, we pass the 20,000.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Would you say anything else? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, we have a number of people here that want to speak in our 10-minute public input period. Ben Key is first.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Ben Key. I'm sure most of all you know I'm on the Stormwater Advisory Board. We're here once again to please ask you guys to consider our unanimous decision as far as our board goes in reducing the stormwater impact fee by 25%. We've looked at it 6 ways to Sunday. Bottom line is we've got plenty of money in the fund already. Excess over $350,000 by the end of this fiscal year. We've got contingencies upon contingencies upon contingencies built in the budget already for 2013, and we're still going to have money left over. At some point, we've got to say, okay, when do we pass these savings along to the citizens and the businesses? Like you said, Mr. Hopgood, you know, we've got to look out for these businesses in these hard economic times. The bottom line is 65% of the $1.1 million in stormwater fees going to bring in this year comes from businesses. And yet you don't hear a lot of citizens calling and complaining about the stormwater fee because for most of them it's $4. You know, but for some of these businesses it's $3,000 to $5,000, and every little bit helps. Again, we thank you for your consideration. We studied it 6 ways to Sunday, and like I said, that's why we have the Stormwater Advisory Board, is for us to dig into the numbers so you guys can focus on the more important things. We've looked at it. We've said that 25% is certainly feasible. It's not going to put the fund in any harm. We're going to have enough money in case we have another 500-year flood within 3 years again, but we'd certainly like you guys to appreciate it and hopefully make a motion and vote to reduce the stormwater fee just by 25%. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eddie Black.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Eddie Blackwell. I'll preface my remarks by saying I do not live in the city, so one could reasonably argue that I may not have any skin in this game or a dog in the fight, but I am a business owner inside the city and I own commercial property inside the city. And I was sitting here thinking about this family that came up and being recognized, and we've got a business that's going to expand. This is a great county, and this is a great city. I don't live in this city, but if I didn't live where I did live, I'd live here. And I'm glad that businesses are moving into this county and moving into this city and calling Canton home. And I look around this dais here, I know most of you, some of you I don't know, and some of you I've known a long time. Mayor, Jack, Bill Bryan, Bob Dyer. And you're all intelligent people. I know that for a fact because I've had interactions and dealings with all of you. And I don't think any of you ran for the job that you're taking now to get rich or to make friends. You You ran because you have a servant's heart. You're here to serve. You're here to lead. And sometimes leading means making hard decisions that aren't popular, that might make your phone ring at night, that may cause your email account to light up with, "I'll never vote for you again," or "I'm going to have you recalled." That happens. I spent 8 years in public service. I know what that's like. But what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about tonight is a situation that I think you're going to consider on tonight's agenda. I believe you're going to consider the fire district. I've been a property and casualty insurance agent for 30 years. And I can tell you that every major property insurer in the state of Georgia has asked for, or is going to ask for, rate increases this year. Most of them will get it. And I will also say that those very same insurance companies asked for and got a rate increase last year. Property insurance is going to, your property insurance premium, whether it's your commercial building, whether it's your home, whether it's your apartment building, whatever it is, your premium is going to go up. Currently, the city of Canton has a Class 4 ISO rating. I would hate to see that Class 4 be jeopardized, because if you go to a 4 to a 5, that's going to mean another increase. And God forbid you go from a 4 to a 6, because then you're really looking at a strong increase in premium. I'm not here to be an advocate for either side as to whether you consolidate or whether you build other stations or what you do. But I see intelligent, thinking, rational people up here, and I would ask that you arrive at a decision that will safeguard the property in the city of Canton, and that do everything you can to keep insurance premiums as low as possible. Obviously, I would love for the premiums to go higher, but I have to pay those premiums too. If you took a $200,000 home, just numbers out of the air, if you're in a protection class 4 and you go to a 6 or a 5, you're looking at probably 20% rate increase. Your premium's going to go up anyway. That's just, it's going to go up. You take that, then you add on another rate increase because of a possible ISO lowering of rate. You're looking at several $100s per year. I'm glad I'm not in your position. I don't envy any of you. It's a tough decision to make, but I trust you to do the right thing. And as a business owner, I don't want to lecture you, but if you're going to disagree with each other, be civil. Be civil towards one another. And if you've got a disagreement, do it behind closed doors. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Tanner? Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Mayor and Council, I want to thank you for this opportunity to come before you and share my comments. My name is Pat Tanner, and I am a lifelong resident of the city of Canton. I come before you with friends to say that we support the council's decision to establish a fire district for the city of Canton. We further support our efforts to keep our fire services within the city and under the city's control. As a Canton senior citizen with exemptions, I am willing and ready to pay my share, as are other seniors I have spoken with. As a former member of this council, I know how difficult it can be to make the right decision for the future of our city especially when facing opposition to the decisions that you make. I have not always agreed with every decision you've made now, nor will I in the future. However, as long as you are doing what you feel is best for this city and all of its citizens, you are doing what you were elected to do. Once the additional fire stations are completed, I am hopeful that our ISO rating will be lowered, which will offset this cost by reducing our homeowners insurance that the gentleman just spoke of, homeowners insurance premiums. When that happens, I'm sure that we will think back on this time and wonder what was all the fuss about. It is unfortunate, let me repeat that. It is unfortunate that there has been so much misinformation being spread in our community regarding senior citizens losing their exemption. This is simply not true. I understand that some seniors feel it is unfair that they should have to pay this new fire district millage rate. As an involved citizen of this city, I have discussed this issue with seniors and non-senior citizens who are willing to pay their fair share. Since some of you have been under attack for doing what we elected you to do, make the difficult decisions, I felt we needed to let you know that there are citizens who support this fire district decision. And at this time, I am asking those who came with me to offer up their support to stand. Thank you. This is just a few that I have spoken with. I am sure there are more, and I believe that we are a part of the silent majority. Now, in a month or two, I may be back as one of those citizens who do not favor your actions. But tonight, I want to say thank you for keeping our fire services in the city and under the city's control. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Dean Floyd.
How y'all doing this evening? I'm actually on vacation this week, so I'm going to have to read notes. I'm not really prepared, but I do appreciate y'all letting me have the time to come up here and speak. Monday afternoon, I got a letter from Chairman Ayers, and it really bothered me to the point of where I felt compelled to come out here tonight and just address this. The letter went to everybody. I would like to address that letter specifically and some of the erroneous information that was in it. Specifically 7 topics that I would like to discuss. In his letter, he wrote that the new fire stations, the cost of the new fire stations at $750,000 was inaccurate, that it's going to cost more, closer to $1 million. The $750,000 price that we come up with, we actually got with a state licensed contractor that looked at the plans that we had, studied them, and said, you can build this for this much money. That is not a number that we fabricated. It come from a state licensed contractor. Item number 2, where he says the significant issues to improve is more training for personnel. The City of Canton Fire Department received over 3,000 hours of training last year. The City of Canton Fire Department has on staff a National Professional Qualified Level 3 instructor, which is the highest level instructor you can receive by the National Fire Protection Association. Absolutely the highest. There's probably only about 50 of those instructors in the state of Georgia, and we are lucky enough to have one of them in the City of Canton. We utilize him. He actually does lessons plan for us and helps us keep our training in track and to be able to maintain our certifications. To the point in April of this year, April 18th, we had Mike Hancock from the Georgia Firefighter Standards and Training Council. We are required by the state to come up and be trained or be audited every 2 years. This was our year. Mike wrote
And paraphrasing in this, many times the citizens we serve do not realize the hours of dedication required to provide a quality fire department. You and the members of your department are to be commended for complying with the requirements mandated for the fire department and firefighters under Georgia law. Your training hours and task books were reviewed for 2011 and were found to be in order for all state certified personnel. We maintain the level of certification above and beyond that the state of Georgia requires. We maintain a level of certification above that ISO requires. Our firefighters are required to receive a minimum of 240 hours a year, and they do. So we maintain that high level of training. We have professional men and women working in our fire department, and we take that very serious. Item number 3, and I just messed my notes up, I do apologize. Like I said, I wasn't ready for this tonight. County qualified paramedics on calls. County qualified paramedics on calls. The city of Canton, we have 3 paramedics, 12 EMTs that are state certified. Every one of our paramedics and EMTs are state certified. My guess is the counties are too. I don't know where he's coming up with county certification, but our paramedics and EMTs are state certified. We ensure that there is at least an EMT on every truck that pulls out of our station. At least one EMT is on that truck at all times. That is a requirement for our basic life support license. We are a basic life support fire department, which by that license mandates we have to maintain that level of service. They're on there. Today's shift, the downtown station is actually an advanced life support. We have 2 paramedics on staff right now protecting the citizens in this great city. So they are here. They are working right now. The Canterbury Ridge Fire denotes a gap in training. The downtown Canton denotes a gap in training. Well, we obviously just covered the training, that we do maintain our level of training. The Canterbury Ridge Fire and the downtown Canton Fire, if there is a specific incident that he can point out that says this is a lack of training, I welcome that correspondence. I would love to be shown where that is the case. I was at both fires. I spent many hours there along with a lot of fine men and women in the fire service that dedicated their lives and risked their lives to protect us and our property. There was no lack of training on anybody at either of them fires. I challenged him to show me where that happened. It did not happen. They are professionals, all of them. Cherokee County, Woodstock, City of Canton, we provide a high level of service, every one of us. Mutual aid and automatic aid. I received this letter on August the 13th, and it is ironic, that very evening, we sent 2 engines and a tower truck to a Cherokee County business in unincorporated Cherokee County. That very evening, we practice automatic aid on a daily basis. Cherokee County and the City of Canton have an excellent working relation, and I'm hoping that letters like this do not jeopardize that working relation, that we can maintain that high level of service. We work close together to maintain the highest level of protection to all citizens inside the county, inside the City of Canton. The closest station responds regardless of the geographical boundaries. We provide that level of service. The very recent accident on 575 and Highway 20 basically shut down the City of Canton on-duty personnel. In regards to this, I've searched from January 1st until today, and I have not found any wreck in that area. I have not seen anything. The closest thing we found to it was a wreck that happened at Breeze Hill, Highway 20 in Breeze Hill a couple of months ago. We had 2 engines on the scene, and we had personnel that were staged, ready to respond if anything else happened in the city. So without further information, I cannot address it. I just do not see where we had shut down the City of Canton because of running a wreck. ISO, he says, the insurance company do not recognize ISO. I'm not going to say yes it does, no it don't. I will say that ISO is a national organization that, if not all, most insurance companies do recognize ISO. Mr. Blackwell doing an excellent job of explaining what ISO is and how it works, how it affects each and individual business and property owner within the City of Canton. We are a Class 4 fire department. We are making plans to build 2 additional fire stations, equip these stations, and put the personnel in it, and that is just a step to get a Class 3 fire department. Where we're reading that we have to build 5 stations per that report, that is just an inaccurate statement. If we build 5 stations and we equip them, that is working towards a Class 1 fire department. And I do not think the city has made any attempts to try to achieve a Class 1 fire department. Our goal is to achieve a Class 1 fire department, a Class 3 fire department, and this is the right steps per the consultant for everything that we have done. This is the right steps to do. The homeowners in this city will see the benefit from this Class 3 fire department, but the largest benefit will be the commercial businesses. They're the ones that's going to feel a tremendous asset when they get the Class 3 fire department. That is what's going to be the biggest selling point to help rejuvenate and bring more businesses into the city of Canton, to help offset the tax dollars to start bringing it down, bring more businesses in, lower the tax digest, help offset the fire taxes that's coming in. That is the 7 points that I wanted to discuss in the letter. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to discuss them. And that is all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have public input period. All right, now we'll go with the consent item agenda. I will read these, and if there's any that need to come off the consent agenda, we will pull it off. Just let me know. Approval of the August 2nd, 2012 council meeting minutes. Approval of the August 2nd, 2012 special call meeting minutes. Approval of insurer license fee increase ordinance. Approval of resolution to charge administrative fee for occupational tax business license registration. Attachments ready. Does anyone have any questions about any of them? Okay.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve and a second to approve the consent agenda. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Okay, under old business, discussion and possible action memorandum of understanding with Northside Hospital. This is attachment in your agenda package there. I think that we made some revisions in the proposed memorandum from last meeting. And does anyone have any comments about that? Mr. Bears?
Make a motion that we approve.
We have a motion, we have a second. Have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Discussion and possible action on water and sewer operations services contract. Attachment 5. Have any discussion regarding that?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the water and sewer operations contract with utility partners. Any other discussion? Mr. Cummings?
One question, did the negotiations include the preparation of annual performance evaluation criteria?
Do you know? Go ahead. Hang on a second. You want to speak to that? Do you know about it? Go ahead. All right, go ahead.
I think that we have approved an additional city engineer that would be able to have the capacity to help out with our current engineer to be able to do oversight on these programs. We've been shorthanded. I think that's one of the reasons why we're bringing that individual on. Therefore, I think that's what will happen.
The impression, if I may, the impression I had from the comments at the last meeting, Mr. Cummings, was given the fact that the contract could be terminated on, I think, 60 days notice at any given point in time. The impression that I had coming out of the discussion at the last meeting was that a rigid evaluation form or process or on an annualized basis might not be necessary, but basically the oversight that Mr. Beresford referred to from the incoming staff engineer who would be assigned that oversight responsibility would be how that would be achieved.
Then do I understand it that you're going to be assigning that engineer their responsibility to develop those criteria in which we can evaluate?
Yes, we're subject to finding that engineer.
Yeah, well, that's clear. If the engineer is here, he can't, not here, he can't develop it. Then that answers the question. As long as we are going to do that function, I don't
care whether it's been negotiated now or not. Thank you.
Do we have a motion and a second? Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Discussion of stormwater projects and request for stormwater rate reduction. Mr. Cummings?
Mr. Mayor, the Stormwater Board has come before us on multiple occasions. They've evaluated the situation in terms of revenue collection. They have unanimously recommended a reduction of 25% in the stormwater fees, and I would like to make the motion that our fiscal year 13 include that reduction, and that future years will be evaluated at the end of each preceding year, and that we do that 25% reduction.
And we have a motion. Do we have a second? Have a second? Any other discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I have a very strong disagreement with the Stormwater Committee, as I indicated when they interviewed us, because I think they're putting the accent on the wrong syllable. In the stormwater ordinance that was issued, it specifically states that in paragraph 600.7 or -7, it says stormwater utility service charge credit technical manual shall be prepared defining how credits shall be calculated. Now, when this was brought up, I think the stormwater ordinance was in 2006. This stormwater credit utility manual wasn't adopted by council until Mr. Beresford and I pushed for it in May of 2011. And I indicated to the stormwater, Mr. Merrick McClure, that we should be advancing stormwater credits, because it also says that the stormwater service charge credit may be up to 50% of the service charge applicable to a property. That includes businesses. And what they're supposed to be doing is to do conservation methods that are supervised by the city or applied for, and that will reduce the inflow to our water and sewer plant. So they're supposed to be looking at quantity of water as well as quality, and every time it's been introduced, and I was told by Mr. McClure that it's been introduced at the stormwater meetings, and they've declined to do it because they're saying it's not cost effective. Well, if you can reduce it 50%, you've got a lot of money in the excess money, according to them, in the stormwater fund now. Hire somebody to supervise the reduction. Let the citizenry and the businesses reduce their stormwater credits by doing rain barrels. The school board came to us about a year and a half ago asking us to forgive their stormwater charges, which is something like $60,000 a year. They can get rid of all of them by doing stormwater education. So I think the Stormwater Committee needs to be looking at ways to conserve water and to reduce the inflow to our water and sewer plant, besides just reducing the revenue and cutting the funds. I think we can, if we go and the citizenry can cut their fees 50%, that's a greater reduction than 25. So I'm opposed to it.
Yes.
Well, I feel the frustrations from the Stormwater Committee. I've had several conversations and one meeting with them, and I can understand the frustrations. There is a great deal of money there, but at the same time, there seems to be a difference of opinion, possibly, of what quality, stormwater quality is, and what's in one person's eyes and another person's eyes are somewhat different, or could be different, or are different. And the only way to resolve that, and I think Mr. Mayor likes to look at the manuals a great deal and always refer back to that as direction. And as my understanding is, as late as today, that there is such a manual that I haven't seen. I just heard about it today, in that if there's a difference of opinion of what quality stormwater is, then we need to pull that manual out. Now, I'm new on the committee, but on the council, but I've been here since January, and I haven't heard anything about that manual until today. And although I would be in favor of rolling it back, like it's suggested, but not until that we gone through the exercise, and I understand the frustrations that they've been here time and time again, and I say, don't give up. We want to bring this engineer on that's going to help us, and we need to look at the manual as well. And if it's right to roll it back, hey, you got my vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Special?
At the last stormwater meeting, we had a number of items that were selected out. For example, the riprap on a creek that leads into the Canton River. And those different projects, as Mr. Hubbard was referring to, is this stormwater, is this whatever it might be. But it went back and forth, and using just that.
Excuse me, would you move your microphone a little closer? We've got some people who can't hear you, and they really need to hear what you're saying.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. And the numbers that we were looking at, and after talking with the staff, what's that?
Apparently this is not working. That one's working.
Is that green light?
Get it close if you will. What you're saying is important, John. They need to hear.
So, I'll start over again. If you can't hear me, I'll stand up and talk louder. But at the last stormwater meeting, we had a selected projects that were identified that needed to be done in the next 5 to 10 years, or excuse me, 1 to 5 years. In looking at just that small group, we did not look at the total budget of the stormwater program. So using just those numbers, those projects, it was easy to say we should cut it back by 25%. Looking at the total stormwater budget, it's not easy to say 25%. We need to look at the whole versus what we're looking at. I'm not comfortable with 25%. I'm not saying I'm not for a reduction, but 25% rolling in the entire budget is not something I can support.
Okay, anyone else? If not, I would say that several years ago, I tried to get a rollback, get the council at that point to roll back the stormwater because we had a budget that the expenditures were way below what the revenues were. And I thought it would send a good message to our citizens that how small it may be, we're not going to try to take from you more than we really need on a yearly basis. And so, but obviously I didn't get anywhere at that point, but obviously the Stormwater Advisory Board now has taken a look at it. We have approximately $450,000 that will be left over for this fiscal year, plus a 300 or 3 or 4, maybe 200, that was 310. I believe they've reduced it to 160,000 or so. So you're going to have probably a little over $500,000 worth of contingency on $1 million budget. So that's a pretty heavy contingency in my opinion. So, I think, I don't think we would be hurting the stormwater effort to roll it back and to look at it on an annual basis. But anyway, we do have, Mr. Scott.
That was my motion, was it 1 year? It wasn't a perpetual rollback, but based on the cash position and the amount of contingency that we have relative to the total budget, it's a very doable thing, in my opinion, to roll it back for fiscal year 13.
Anyone else? Mr. Ryan?
So for fiscal year 13, it wouldn't take effect until October 1st, a year from now.
No.
October 1st. Fiscal year 13.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I understand. It's
Anyone else? We have a motion and a second. The motion is to roll the stormwater fee back by 25%.
Mr. Mayor, are we okay to vote on this? Don't we have to?
Well, yes, that's been that's in here, been on the agenda, and also it's part of the budget itself. So
it is part of the budget, but
it's approving the budget. We have talked about this at other meetings.
No, we have talked about it. I'm well aware of that, but and just going by the process that you set up, that the motion has been put, but we have time to think about it. That was your
Well, I believe we did have a work session that.
I'm just going by what you put in place. I agree with the work sessions, I agree with all that. I'm just going about
What I put in place was that it would be in a work session. It's already been in a work session, and therefore, this is a voting session, so I think we can do that. Mr. Canton?
I think that 25% has been mentioned several times. I don't think that's anything new. The only new thing the only difference is I made it for 1 year rather than a perpetual rollback. That's the only difference.
Okay. We've had a motion and a second. Any other questions?
Just want to.
Yes. They wanted to quiet you down, didn't they? We turned his microphone.
You delivered. Now see, you made me lose my track. So I have a problem with the fact that it would be rolled back 1 year. And then next year, or when the next time it comes up, we go, well, now we've got to come back and give it to you again. I hate to take away and then give back or have to give back. It's either let's reduce the whole thing, move on, and say we'll live with it until some point in the distant future, hopefully, that we don't have to. But if we did, it doesn't bode well to me with citizens saying, oh, we got a few bucks back this year, next year we got to take the hit. So that's just mine.
Thank you, Mr. Beresford. Mr. Rice, go ahead.
One last comment. I just can't say it enough. I think we as a city should not enforce, but encourage conservation, because one of our biggest problems is our water and our sewer plant and the inrush from stormwater. And if we encourage conservation, we encourage people to catch their stormwater and businesses to catch their stormwater, we can reduce that stormwater fee by 50%, not 25%. And if we start doing conservation and automatic reductions, we could come up with what Mr. Beresford said, is we're going to have to raise it again in a year or two. So I think we should just hang on and let the Stormwater Committee Advisory Board develop plans to encourage conservation and not just arbitrarily cut prices.
Any other comments? Okay, if not, those in favor of the motion to reduce by 25%, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote. Okay. Mr. Huffman?
No.
Mr. Bryant?
No.
Mr. Beresford? Yes. Mr. Goodman? Yes. Mr. Rush?
No.
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes or no,
I
John?
said no.
So I guess I will reduce the rate by 25%.
Mr.
I said no.
Oh, there's more? I thought, Bill, you voted yes?
I said no.
Oh,
I
I
didn't
thought
have
you said
my
yes.
card.
Okay. All right, 42 then. I don't guess I get to vote this time. Okay. Appreciate your work. I know you may not think that at this time, but I know you spent a lot of time on it, a lot of effort, but thank you.
We do appreciate that work. It will be done. Just please be patient. We will get it done.
All right, the next item, discussion and possible action to proceed with the SCADA system. I will prelude that a little bit with some information that there is some discussion going on now that Mr. Wood and I and a representative have been discussing briefly with the parties involved in with the reservoir. And I think it probably would be in our best interest and hope maybe not to move, maybe to take action at this time. But I'll leave that up to you, Kevin. That's right.
I would like, if the council would agree, to allow Mr. Hatabian to tell us one of the reasons why the SCADA system would be advantageous to the city of Canton.
Sure.
If the council, I guess we have to vote on that.
Okay, I think we can do that. Anybody have any objection to that? Certainly not. Okay. Dave?
I think that
one of the things that hasn't really been talked about, we talked about the doomsday and all that stuff. One of the key issues now is the ability to release water. I'm assuming everyone understands that we can use the water during a drought. Matter of fact, a few weeks ago, we were real close to having to release water. 11 million gallons a day sounds like a lot, but it's not going to have a hill of beans of impact on the river over a 24-hour period. So what we would do is we would release during peak demands, maybe 3 or 4 hours of early morning, 3 or 4 hours at dinner time. And that would raise the river level enough so it would be over the intake of the water plant. We wouldn't lose any water. But you're talking about releasing at 5:30 in the morning to 9 in the morning, and then 5 to 8 at night or at 9 at night, and the same thing on the weekend. So with the SCADA system, that can be done remotely. It's just another plus for it. That's pretty much about it on that.
Can we do it without the SCADA system?
Manually, you have to have someone physically at the pump station, turn the pump on, shut the pump off, come back and yes, you can do it manually.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Dave? Comments? Okay.
Then I think maybe perhaps, given that, I don't know if you want to make public what the discussions are that we should be considering. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it, but I'm for approving the SCADA system, but if there's some action there that we should be aware of, perhaps we should table it until we can be made aware of it. And so I guess I'll make a motion to table this until the work session be fine.
We should, I think everyone could be aware of it at that time, for sure, of the efforts it would take. Okay. You made a motion to
I made a
table,
motion to table.
and a second. Any other questions? If not, those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Thank you. Okay. Second reading, discussion and possible action for fiscal year 2013 budget. Is Nathan going to make a presentation today on that? Well, I know it's only a couple of little items that had changed in that, I believe.
In the general fund itself.
Well, I don't know about that.
Nathan, you want to speak to that, please?
Oh, here it is.
Susan left us a memo.
The statement regarding the funds for the theater, possible funds there, and page 14, the UP contract, change the percentage of the cost of living, not cost of living.
It was CPI.
CPI.
80% CPI. Now, the theater we were pegging to contingency. Subject to bringing back the recommendation on the.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's not. It was simply a statement in the budget that says the money would be available from contingencies if the DEA decided that they would do that.
The board of directors recommended.
Yes. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
I had one comment that I brought up at the one meeting that I did attend, and I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it, but we have in excess of $500,000 of professional services in that budget, which seems like a lot to me, and in some cases maybe it's not, but I get the feeling, or I would feel more comfortable if every expenditure in the budget for professional services would come before council for approval, to see if all of these things are really necessary. That's the one comment that just seems like a lot of money for professional services. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it.
That's your question.
Was that inclusive of the water and sewer budget? I would think that it would be,
Yeah.
and I would remind you that council approved a $330,000 contract with Intratech for the design of the new sewer plant. 100% of that 330, I think it's 332 or 334,000, 100% of that was not in the FY 13 budget. A small portion of it was actually covered under the FY 12 budget. I'm looking at Nathan to be sure I'm right. But the majority of that, easily half of the $500,000 number that you mentioned, easily half of it would have been consumed by that one contract alone. But, and that's not to debate the point that you raised. I'm just saying that that half of that is in one contract alone.
I don't have my numbers with me on all of the, I itemized each one of the professional services, but I didn't bring that sheet of paper with me. But you know, if nobody is as concerned as I am, then we just let it go as in the budget.
Yeah, if the budget is adopted, it will be, basically will be approved.
What does that,
Go ahead.
does that mean that the council has a need for professional services, that we have the budget to ask for it?
Sure. Actually, there's about I think there's 833,000 in that professional services.
Yeah,
And there's
I probably didn't count that 300,000.
Yeah, maybe not. And you know, we got about 77,000 in salary increases and bonuses, and we got about 52,000 in travel, 73 in education and training, and about 9,000 in food, and gasoline and oil, which is a big one, 266,000.
Mr. Mayor, what I was thinking about was that we have professional services. When I started to think about running for this position, one of the biggest things I want to do is economic development. And I noticed that when we were looking at the budgets of our sister city down south of us, their economic development budget is enormous, and we wonder why they get some of the things they do get. Maybe we need some professional services.
Well, that could always be, you you could amend the budget to get that at any time if the council chose to do so, but it has to be approved then.
Yeah.
I assume that it's above and beyond that.
Yeah.
But it could be done.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, in the spirit of what Mr. Rush is probably posing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's in the budget. We'll leave it in the budget as is, but I think what your thought is, when we need an outside service, professional service, it should come before council that this particular ISO that was agreed upon, we needed it, and that service was one that we needed. So I think that's in the spirit. Just because it's in the budget doesn't mean by the end of the year we got to go out and figure out.
Let me.
No, I mean, I just say, so it would be there if we need it, but it should be brought before council before we approve going ahead and bringing on this particular.
Most of our professional services are supported by contracts. And I think it's been our history and tradition, obligation perhaps, to bring contracts back to city council for approval prior to the mayor's signature. So I think that, Infotech as an example, we take that contract and brought back to the city council.
Well,
so those that are contractualized will be brought back to city council anyway prior to the mayor's signature.
This one goes back a year or so, and it was a concern about street improvements. And remember, you brought in an engineer to evaluate the route, and that was something that it was in your budget to do it, and you went ahead and set it up. So I think that's what might be some part of the issue. I don't have a problem with bringing in professionals and giving us input, because we sure don't have all the knowledge in the world, although most of our citizens think we do.
That's right.
I think we're all aware that this council has spent a number of hours analyzing the budget. We sat right here and spent 6.5 hours one day going through it page by page and almost line by line individually. I'm sure we've gone through it. We all understand that it can be changed or modified at any time during the year. reduced it by, am I correct in saying almost $1 million from last year's budget?
That's right.
Almost $1 million less than it was last year?
It's almost $2 million from the last three fiscal years, as I recall.
Our
Last
tax
year count.
digest our overall property values have dropped. We have not raised the millage rate. We've not increased taxes. We've not touched any of our beloved exemptions. With all that said, being factual information, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the budget.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Anything else? Any other discussion? Mr. Canton?
I have one question. The budget becomes ordinance effective when, October 1st? Or does it become ordinance effective tonight?
October 1st, I believe. You're still operating under the previous budget.
So the effective date of whatever we're voting on is actually October 1st?
Yes. That's the way I would look at it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
I have one question, doesn't really refer to the forthcoming budget, more to this budget. When we adopted this budget last year, Mr. Beresford and I were pushing for some money to be put in the reserve funds. The prior year, we put in $250,000. And at the time, we were told that at the end of the year, if we have left over, we'll put some in the reserve fund. Well, it's the end of the year, and I'd like to know if we're going to get any more money put in the reserve fund, because right now we have, what, 300 and some thousand, and we should have $1 billion and something. So I'd just like to have that question answered if Nathan can answer it.
Hold up, man.
Per some discussions that we've had, me, Mr. Wood, and even with some of the council members, I think that might be more appropriate answer at the time we look at our fiscal year 12 audit, which will be here in a couple of months, about 2 or 3 months. When we get those audited financial statements, I think we'll be able to make more educated decisions. Can we put 100, 200, 5, whatever it is.
But you're thinking there's going to be something we can put there?
I hope so, and yes, the numbers are expected to be positive.
Mr. Canton? No, okay. Anyone else?
Can I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not sure I answered the question you asked right. The effective date of the ordinance would be immediate, because that's what you're required to do. You have to adopt the budget in advance. The implementation of it would start October 1st, which is what I was thinking. Is that, I'm not sure what you're asking me. The ordinance is effective as soon as it's signed and all that, because it's adopting the budget for the coming year.
Well, the reason for my question is very simple, is if it's effective immediately, it's in conflict with the fire district ordinance. That's why I asked on October 1st, because the fire district ordinance is currently a law. It does not allow for any use of general funds in the, I know it's going to be amended, but at this particular moment, it does not allow for use of any general funds for fire services. And therefore, us passing a second ordinance, if it's effective immediately, would be in conflict with the ordinance that's already been passed and vetoed and overridden. So I guess that's where my question is coming from. So you need to answer is, are we in effect in conflict with the current fire district ordinance by passing this budget tonight?
And the answer to that would be no, because nothing gets spent until October 1st.
And that was the
Effective date of the ordinance legally means it is now an ordinance. What you're asking is practical. In reality, we don't start spending the money until October 1st.
So in that question, I can vote yes and not be voting for.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Anyone else? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Thank you. All right, the next item, discussion of possible action on Cherokee County Board of Education request regarding Academy Street I believe that Dave was going to be looking at that regarding, no, Joby was going to be looking at that regarding parking
I think
spaces.
I think the only question was relative to, there are no dedicated parking spaces. I think the only question that came out of, there are some assumed, there's some squatter parking spaces, but there are no dedicated parking spaces.
There were dedicated though before they resurfaced that, wasn't they? They just haven't been painted back.
I'm not certain about that. Now, Joby, do you know about that? Or Dave?
I know there were parallel out Academy Street at one time.
I'm gonna have to defer to okay, Jimmy on that one, I'm not sure.
Dave, were there dedicated parking spaces there?
Dedicated parking was a two-way.
Wait a minute, it was one way, it's one way now.
Right, but it wasn't two-way at one time.
Wasn't there some parking spaces lined off on the right as you turn on the?
there were.
Yes. I mean, I thought so, it used to be, anyway, before they resurfaced it.
There were signposts, that the signs have been removed from.
Right.
Not enough room for parking, sir, just two-way traffic.
Well, it wasn't two-way, recently, it's not two-way now.
It's one way now, yeah.
It's one way, it was two-way with no dedicated parking. Then it became one way.
When it became one way, since it became one way, or before, but at least since it became one way, I know there were assumed parking spaces. I know people park there, but were there marked dedicated parking spaces at any point in time on that two-block stretch of Academy Street?
No.
Well, there really was, it might not, when you use the question at any point in time, I know for a fact, there used to be parking spaces out there, I just don't remember how long ago it was.
But the only reason I brought it up at the last meeting is it was on the documents to say that we'd be losing parking spaces there. You know, so I mean, that was my question, is if it said it in the agenda or in the attachment that we'd be losing parking spaces, I had to assume that there were parking spaces there.
I would think at one point, there probably were no more than 5 or 6 out there, maybe, probably 6 on that side of the street at one time, or whenever that was. I don't remember when it was, but we have a...
And the only other question was that I thought our traffic enforcement ought to review that. I don't know if they have or not.
Yeah, and that was the charge for me that I particularly remembered coming was that, and I have conferred with the police chief who indicates they have no problem at all with conversion back on this.
Mr. Bryant?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the request.
Have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Thank you. Okay, discussion and possible action to adopt private streets within the villas at Riverstone. Ian, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, if you'll recall at the work session meeting, presented to you that 100% of the property owners had signed off on the request. The streets have been looked at, we're in pretty good shape. There are some items that if city council is inclined to accept the streets, we would need to complete these items after the city, if you will, accepts the streets, because it doesn't make sense to have HOA write a check to the city of Canton to pay for the signage that is required by the city if you're not going to accept the streets. Same for the city attorney working on writing a deed to dedicate that right of way until after the city accepts. What I would do is, after those 4 items that we discussed 2 weeks ago have been completed, I would bring a resolution for city maintenance acceptance back, confirming that those items have been completed in accordance with the wishes of the mayor and council.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, because that was the question. There was 4 defined items that needed to be completed. You explained what it is, so I'd like to make a motion that we accept it.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Russ?
I only have one comment, and that it's that I have been personally opposed to accepting any private streets since the topic was introduced. having said that, this council had decided that we would accept the streets at Pinnacle Place, and we never, as a council, set any objective method to measure whether we accept the street or not. It's purely subjective. So given what council has decided, I'm putting my opposition aside and I'm going to vote for it.
Okay. Mr. Bryant? Yes.
I touched on this before, and I will say I will be voting in favor of this motion, but I would like to ask the council to consider one modification to it. As I brought up before, when we accepted the streets in the Pinnacle Place, they contributed $25,000 to the city from a maintenance account that they had, and there was 98 homes there. And that equates to about $250 per home, actually $255 per home. We set the precedent by accepting that, and I accept that as the way it's going to be, but we also collected $250 per home to be contributed to the city towards the upkeep of those streets. I believe it's immaterial whether the homeowners association had the money or not. I think it would only be fair to the people at Pinnacle Place that we carry the same policy forward, and from now on, any neighborhood that we consider accepting the streets, we charge a $250 fee. We would have to call it the right thing, a maintenance fee or an acceptance fee or whatever, but to be contributed towards the future maintenance of their streets. So if you would consider adding that, that's all I would request.
I think, just my thoughts there is that, you know, if the council wanted to make that a policy, I think that certainly could be done. But I think the policy that we were going under and was that, how was that stated? Do you remember if they had it in their fund that?
Correct. If there was some, the policy the council adopted included one item, which was if they had money reserved for road maintenance, that had to be turned over to the city.
That is correct, and we did have monies, and we did. But I understand that the Riverstone Villas did not have that set aside, so that was the reason that it came up, and I think that Mr. Rush had appointed at the last meeting in reference to.
What Mr. Bryan has recommended, certainly I think it's maybe worthy of making an amendment to the policy at some point, but under our current direction, I think that it appears that they may have met what we have asked. So, anyone else have anything?
I would comment that there are other streets in the city that are in far worse shape than the villas at Riverstone or Pinnacle Place that are private streets, specifically in Great Sky. And if they come to the city to accept and we say $250 and you got it, they'll be happy, because those streets have no topping, no curbs, no sewers. They're a mess, and the problem is we've set a subjective criteria, so it can vary from street to street. So I think if we say 250 for Pinnacle was enough for villas, it's enough for Great Sky. I'm not sure we can do that. So.
That's a good point. Anyone else? Okay. Well, we do have a motion and a second on the table here. Call the second. Okay, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think it would be wise for us to take a further look at what Mr. Bryant suggested. That might be achieving some kind of that might be studied up.
I agree. Anybody else on that? Item H, first reading, the amended fire ordinance. It's your attachment 6, Mr. Cummings.
I'd like to thank Mr. Blackwell, Ms. Tanner, and Chief Floyd. He came up, they all came up here and spoke to the council, and Basically, what we have is we have a council of 6 members that have agreed with improving and expanding Canton fire services under the umbrella of the city. So that particular discussion is basically unanimous at this particular point in time. I have no problem with the fire district. My issue is with the solution that is being applied for funding. I believe it's subject to significant legal challenges, and the way I understand that the amendment is going to be proposed is that the 2.88 mils for fire services stay in the general fund, and then I believe currently there's a 1 1/8 or 1.125 mils to be proposed to be levied in the fire district. The legal opinion given by our attorney is that that 1 1/8 mils could be construed to be a fee and not a tax. And if it were ever ruled to be a tax, it could secondly be, that's a fee without any exemptions, by the way. And secondly, if it was determined to be a tax, our defense would be that it didn't apply because it wasn't for municipal purposes. I believe that was the wording that was used in there. I did seek out some legal counsel that gave me an opinion, and the definition of a fee is a charge for a service provided or rendered. And there's a question of whether you can stretch that to a service available. Also, whether a levied revenue is either a fee or a tax is determined by a given set of facts. And for us to split fire services on one hand and say it's a tax, and then to take a portion of it and call it a fee, my question, or a question that might be raised in legal challenges, what facts allow you to call it on one hand a tax and on the other hand a fee? If it is a fee, what's the difference between the police department, parks? How are they any different? Another issue with it is that a fee is supposed to be uniformly applied. There's a real question how this can be uniformly considered, being that it's ad valorem. It's because it's going to be based on property value. The question might be challenged. What additional services does the owner of a $500,000 vacant property get that the owner of a rundown $50,000 100-year home with bad wiring not get? Why should one who's more likely exposed to receiving those services pay significantly less than one who is unlikely to receive any service? The other problem that would be brought up in a challenge is that the fee to be charged to some that will never receive any direct or rendered service, and others who never pay the fee could be provided the services. For example, out on 575, we've got a motorist driving along and we have an engine fire, and we respond and we put out that fire, and that person does not have any property in Canton. He has received a gratuitous service because they have no way of charging him. In Hadley versus the City of Atlanta, the distinction between a tax and a fee is that a tax is imposed primarily as a revenue-raising measure. Well, I'd like to challenge all of you to tell me that what we aren't doing in this 1 1/8 mills is raising revenue to build a fire station. Again, I have no problem with raising the revenue. I have a problem with the challenges that are going to be presented to us. Also in Hadley versus City of Atlanta, in analyzing whether a charge is a tax or a fee, the inquiry must be made whether the ordinance operates merely as a means to generate revenue. In Gumby versus Yates, it goes on to say, a tax is an enforced contribution enacted pursuant to legislative authority for the purpose of raising revenue to be used for public or governmental purposes and not for as payment for special privileges or service rendered. I guess the only point that I'm making is I don't object to any of us expanding the fire services. So there's 6 of us are up here, let's do it. But I think we're creating, by using this fire district and putting funding in there, it doesn't matter whether you have a fire district, that's perfectly legal, there can't be any challenge to that. But the method of funding can be challenged. If it's a fee and we stick to that, churches are going to have to pay it. Cherokee County Water and Sewer Authority is going to have to pay it. The school board is going to have to pay it. They're not exempt from fees. So we're creating a lot of potential challenge. My suggestion would be, Mr. Wood actually came up with the best alternative in the short run, is to increase the general millage, look at how we're going to tax all citizens fairly, and I have no problem with seniors paying a portion of the fire services, but I think we're going about it in the wrong way. And basically what I would recommend, because, and I know that I may be speaking to deaf ears, but I recommend that the current ordinance that we have passed and been vetoed and then overridden, that we rescind that, because it has no impact on whether this ordinance that we're currently looking at goes to second reading. I would suggest, I won't make the motion, but I would suggest that we rescind the current one, because we're actually in conflict with the law right now, because we're paying fire services out of general funds, which is in conflict with the ordinance that's been passed. And if you see to it to rescind it, it does no harm whatsoever to the ordinance that you currently have in here and could go to second reading, which you will do at the next meeting. And if you think my arguments are not valid and that you think that that's the way to proceed, you can then therefore vote to move forward. But that would be my recommendation. Rescind the current ordinance so we're not in violation or we're in conflict with the current budget. Proceed, if you so choose, with the amended ordinance to the second reading that you have in here. Thank you.
Mr. Rush?
One comment in that Mr. Cummins gave us a good idea that if the fire department stops somebody on the highway for a fire, we should bill them. I think other jurisdictions do that. If I'm not mistaken, in Florida they do. So, you know, that could be another source of raising revenue. And also, I know that Mr. Dyer has a law degree. I'm not sure Mr. Cummins has. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the fire district ordinance as revised.
We don't need a motion. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just a small technicality, but something that's worth mentioning, it might not change anything, Mr. Gummins, but Mr. Mayor, is that Cherokee County does have a fire district. And I've got a tax bill here dated 8/16/12, and they do give exemptions to the schools. So the churches and we could probably get some exemptions if that were necessary. If they can do it, I would assume we could.
My only point to that is, that's construed as a tax, and what we're construing ours is to be is a fee, and there's a very big...
I don't think that's right.
You are.
They don't apply any exemptions to the county fire tax, because actually the enacting legislation says the homestead exemptions don't apply. So we could change our ordinance to say instead of exemptions don't apply, we could say homestead exemptions don't apply.
I think one big
And then you
difference,
would have the same thing the county has.
I think the big difference with the county though is theirs was put in by referendum, totally by referendum, not by ordinance of the county. I think that's a big difference.
Well, but that's because they're operating on 1968 constitutional provision that required it to be done by referendum. They could do it by ordinance now, but because the Constitution changed. But we could change the ordinance to say, oh, homestead exemptions don't apply, and then churches wouldn't pay and so forth. So that can be fixed.
Yeah. Bill, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, sir, I'd like to ask our attorney to respond. I don't know if you were making notes to all that, but Bobby, have y'all discussed that before, or are you prepared to
Well,
respond to all
none of
that?
that's a surprise. I mean, I could have thought of those too.
Okay.
If you were challenging it, those are what you would come up with.
That's right.
But here's the thing that's missing in that analysis is this, and I think what everybody's having a hard time with is, how can we create a service district to provide something we're already providing? That's sort of, I think, the heart of it. And the answer is because we can. The Constitution allows us to do it. You're expanding the fire services. I think it's entirely appropriate, in my opinion, under the Constitution to create a district and say, we're going to provide you these enhanced fire services, but you're going to pay a fee for those enhanced fire services. Now that's based on my understanding that you're talking about building new fire stations that don't exist already with this money. And that I think justifies it. But the Constitution allows us to create a service district and to charge a tax for that service. So whether you call it a fee or a tax, the Constitution allows it. My problem with the senior exemption is, if it's for a payment of a service, if you exempt anybody, you're giving them that service. So again, I circle back to my original point, which I think everybody's problem is saying, we're already getting that service. And it's an enhanced service that you're paying for with that fee. That's my argument. So, I mean, obviously, all of this will be decided in court if somebody challenges, but that's just my opinion.
That's what I'm just saying.
But I guess I'm not...
Hold on, Mr.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
It's odd that we just had discussion about professional services just a few minutes ago, and I understand you went and got legal counsel, and I don't know any lawyers out there that will not talk to you without charging you by the hour or whatever. And I think that if you have had to pay for that counsel and have a charge for it, I think you should bring that to this council and see if we will consider paying for those charges. Secondly, I think we had great news this week that has not gotten around to everybody. The county had applied with their ISO, and they're still a 5. They were hoping to be a 4 by bringing us into the fold, but they're a 5. We're a 4. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, he asked a question, and I just directed it to Mr. Dyer. Do you do any pro bono work?
You have to occasionally.
And I get some pro bono work.
Anyone else? Mr. Rush?
I would like to, since we've discussed this, but I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, but I would like to introduce a motion to levy a 1.25 fire tax, or fee, whatever you want to call it, but...
You have to wait till the revision.
Second reading, you have to wait till the revision and second reading, don't you?
If the imposition of a tax fee, whatever you want to call it, is the direction council preferring to go, aren't we going to be obligated to advertise that as a tax increase and meet those public notice requirements, schedules.
Getting into the tax versus fee question, but you probably should, yes.
So.
I mean, if it's a fee for a service, no, but.
You got that straight?
It's about as straight as it's coming out of the meeting yesterday.
If that would remove one challenge to things if you did it, whether you need to or not, correct?
Special. And that would apply to 2013.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned, it's not fatally so, but I'm not sure what those schedule requirements are and whether or not those schedule requirements can be met. I think they probably can, but I think it would be right at the last minute almost. You may be adopting an FYE 13 fire district budget after the FYE 13 fiscal year has begun.
You'd have to go back to, I guess, and amend the other budget, right?
Well, it depends. I don't know, because I think you have adopted the FYE general fund and water fund. I think they're history.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, look, you had, go ahead.
To address Mr. Wood, so are we gonna be okay if we have to advertise and get the tax bills out?
I think if we go ahead and start the process, the first of next week, I think you may wind up slightly into the beginning of FYE 13. I don't think it'll be fatal, but I think you might be a little bit after FYE 13. You could be the first week of, let me think.
You're probably going to act at the work session, a special call meeting the day of the work session.
Right.
Mr. Ryan?
That's a legal question for our attorney. Can we elect here tonight to waive the second reading and go ahead and act on the ordinance before us, the ordinance revision?
Yes, I mean, the ordinance that calls for 2 readings says that can be waived.
So if we waive it and go ahead and pass the revision tonight, that still gives us a 10-day window for the mayor to veto it. We could, so I just want to understand clearly what we could do tonight. We could waive the second reading requirement and go ahead and pass the revision. And then we could go ahead and, as Mr. Rush tried to do, go ahead and fund the district as well, and then start that advertising process.
We need to start the advertising process. That's what if you're going to do the advertising.
So we would be advertising it. We would still have a 10-day window for it to be vetoed and revisited if the mayor chose to. So I would like us to consider going ahead and passing the revised ordinance tonight, waiving the second reading, and funding the ordinance. Can we make it all in one motion, or
I don't know that you have to vote to approve the millage rate. You can just direct the staff to begin the process of to open the public hearings.
Okay.
And decide that after the public hearing.
Okay. So while I've not discussed that with any of y'all, I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve the amended fire district ordinance as in the attachment and waive the second reading.
I'll second that. I think before we do that, we need to affirm that we've had the first reading. Okay. All right, now, do that again.
Sure I'm saying it right. This motion affirms that this right now serves as the first reading.
Right.
We're having the first reading now.
Yeah, we got that.
And it's in front of us, and we will waive the second reading as we are allowed to do by our.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? I would just ask a question, are there any conditions relative to waiving the reading? As it, you just do it if you want to do it, don't do it if you don't want to do it?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
And I understand our 2 reading requirement is about as loose as it can be. It's not in the charter, it's in an ordinance. And it just says, all ordinances shall be read at 2 meetings.
So
this can be waived by the council.
The ordinance allows it to be waived without an amendment to the ordinance. Or you have to, or you make an amendment to the ordinance?
It says the two reading requirement can be waived. I mean, that's what I was gonna read to you.
Okay.
That's exactly what it says. Just so everybody will know, I mean,
Not much of an ordinance, is it?
no. But that's why the two reading requirement, I'm not that too worried about it, it's just in your ordinance. But, what it says is, each ordinance shall be read at 2 consecutive meetings of the city council. This section may be waived by 2/3 of those voting upon the question of waiver.
All right, anything else, any other discussion, questions? All right, those in favor of waiving the second reading, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those no?
No?
I believe the ayes have it. Just squeak by. Okay.
I guess the staff is directed to start the public hearing process for the imposition of the millage rate for the fire district.
Okay. All right, the next item is the discussion of the 5-year plan. Mr. Beresford?
We will remove that.
You're not ready yet?
Well, no, we just kind of changed something around here, so I need to look at it again.
What do you want to do with it?
There's no need to.
The 5-year plan.
Is it okay if I talk?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Go over, was your presentation, John, to go over what we discussed in last Wednesday's meeting? I mean, I'm fine, I just
brought up. What was just brought up was that we keep 2.88 mils in the general fund, and we go with the fire district tax, 1.128, or 1.25. That's it.
Okay, now what was this? You haven't repeated that. Did you say something?
Is this one dead now? I think you're flipping the switch on it.
If I could, I would, but
No.
Okay, we'll remove it till, or postpone it till the next meeting?
Yeah, that'd be fine, because
Okay.
now we got something to work with, because we continue to go back and forth. Now we've got a plan, and we'll be able to move forward.
We have a motion to postpone it, and have a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. So we have a tax, but no plan. Okay, city manager's report.
Yes, sir. Three things, Mr. Mayor, I know I was ready to go. Sorry, you caught me at the wrong time. You want to go on?
Well, the only thing I was going to mention, Coach Jack just put it back. I believe Brandon Roberts has asked, each year they have this Field of Faith event, I think in Cherokee High School, part of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And he has asked that we waive the sign any permit or cost requirements for them putting out signs along the roadway and this sort of thing. And I think we ought to do that. I mean, that wasn't on the agenda, but I think we can just generally agree that would be done. Okay.
2 or 3 things, just real quick in the way of announcement. We are making progress on the reservoir launch site. We're waiting on some sort of land disturbance or some sort of soil erosion. I think there's a permit from the state to go forward with some further site work out there. But as soon as we get that process will continue. Mr. Ken Jimmy has identified potentially 3 sites. He's got an overabundance of mulch, and one of the things we need to do is get the word out among gardeners and folks who use mulch that the city's got plenty of free mulch. And I know gardening season is rapidly coming to a close, but a lot of people use mulch to protect other landscaping features. He's got 3 sites picked out. We've looked at them. One will probably be proximate to Southview Cemetery. Another one may be in the back part of the parking lot here, taking up just a space or 2 back near where all of our current recycling containers and the library book depository and all those features are back here. But the public will be able to avail itself of that mulch material on a free basis. They just gotta come get it. Infratech is working on the design of the wastewater treatment plant upgrades and improvements. I'm informed by Mr. Hatagian that process is about 30% completed, and those design, the 30% design drawings are supposed to be submitted to us, I believe, next week. Mr. Ingram reported to me that he and Ms. Stanton had a good meeting with our new insurance agent last week, week before last, I think, actually now, and we have had one vehicle accident, minor vehicle accident during the quarter or so that we've been under that program, and we don't want any, but one is better than some of our history in the past. So we are trying to keep all of our vehicle operators under the spotlight. We've got a tax sales set for the first Tuesday in September. Those listings are already in the paper. There are about 66 parcels as of the first of this week that are slated to be in that tax sale.
Mr. Rose, you
Yeah, yes, I did. This morning, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Goodwin, and I were at the Downtown Development Association meeting, and Mr. Keys, one of the members of that group, said, was complaining about the fact that he was pulling weeds on the islands on Main Street. So if we have excess mulch, I'd suggest maybe we dump some of it over there.
Good idea.
Question now. Sure. Now that the recall bid's left the building, would you send a load over to my house and a couple of guys can spread it? No, I'm just kidding.
Officer, for the record, I will not.
Good answer. Okay. I believe, actually, we probably should have amended the agenda, but I don't think there is a need to adjourn the executive session since we had that special meeting and discuss litigation. So I'll entertain a motion. You were in the bathroom, but we took care of that. Yeah, everyone agreed that we would not charge them anything on the signs or anything for the fields of faith. Yeah, got it done. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Those in favor say aye.
Second.
Opposed, no.